Hello, everybody, and welcome to Sex Talk with Natasha. This is Natasha Helfer Parker. We are about to start an interactive webinar that is going to be dealing with sexual trauma. This is a topic I get a lot as far as requests to cover. So after I kind of got together all my materials, I'm realizing that this is definitely going to be a part 1 of 2-hour webinar. So we're going to do part 1 tonight, and then we're going to do part 2. We'll be going for about an hour. I'm very excited for the 5 kind of tips that I've come up with, which on a topic such as sexual trauma, it can be a little difficult to just come up with 5 things. But we're going to definitely cover tonight some ideas around the statistics and kind of basic information about sexual trauma. And yet, even though it's important to know statistics, how statistics don't define you, and how to make sure that we're making sense of the information that we have around trauma, which oftentimes seems to be very daunting and very depressing, in ways where you can take a resiliency approach, where you can take a growth mindset approach, and where it doesn't have to be this very kind of dramatic story that we tell that then impacts us maybe in ways that doesn't need to be necessary. The number 2 tip that we're going to talk about are what are some typical ways we understand that sexual trauma might be showing up in your current situation. So I get a lot of questions either from people or partners like, is this problem that we're seeing, maybe especially in the bedroom, possibly related to past sexual trauma? These are questions that can be difficult to ascertain. So we're going to talk a little bit about what some of the research shows and whether or not you want to apply those types of ideas to your story. So we want to really empower you to create your own story about what's helpful for you in creating that story. Number 3 tip we're going to talk about is, what does it mean to heal from sexual trauma? I get a lot of interesting kind of presentations of what people think this means when they come into my practice. And sometimes there can be some really, unfortunately, unrealistic expectations or certain things that people assume it will mean. And I think it can be really helpful to kind of create realistic expectations, narratives that are helpful and, again, not harmful in the process. Number 4 tip will be, what is required of you to heal? In other words, that's kind of the question a lot of people ask is, well, what do I need to do to heal from sexual trauma? So we'll be talking about kind of some things that are supported by the research, while at the same time making sure we're making room for your story and whether or not the ideas that you have about what you think it's going to require is actually accurate, and whether or not that serves you. I find that a lot of people actually never come in for sexual trauma work because they're kind of afraid of the things that they think will be required as part of that work. And so we're going to demystify that process a little bit. And then the number 5 tip is going to be really delving into some strategies to help you in particular in your sexual life. So to be able to reclaim sexual pleasure and potential if you feel like past sexual trauma has impacted that area of your life or is, causing some types of issues that you feel might be related. We're definitely not going to get to number 5 tonight. Number 5 is kind of a big section in of itself. I'm planning to get through 1 through 3, if not maybe 1 through 4 tonight. So that's going to be kind of the plan for this evening. So I hope that you'll consider joining us. We're going to start here in about 5 minutes. So in the meantime, I just want to share with all of you a little bit about Sex Talk with Natasha. This is an interactive platform. It's really meant to be comprehensive sexual education for adults. Every Wednesday night, I offer either a Q&A or a webinar or something that is interactive with you as the audience. During the week, I oftentimes offer things on patreon.com if you're a subscriber, such as articles, homework, other resources that I might come across that might be helpful to you. I'm a big believer that most of us probably come from some level of sexual woundedness, right? So whether it's just kind of overall sexual negativity that we grew up with, maybe there were family or religious or cultural factors that inadvertently cause shame or misinformation about our sexual lives, and these things impact us and carry kind of a legacy that I think most of us are interested in healing from, reframing, kind of having perspectives that are new and that are informed in good information, not myths and folklore about sexuality. So a lot of the work that I do in sex therapy, I kind of categorize it under my term, which is unnecessary tragedy, right? Unnecessary tragedy. If we would have just had information or strategies or tips or role models, then we would be avoiding, I think, a lot of the sexual pain and situations that we find ourselves in. And these are very common. They're very common. It doesn't really matter what kind of background you come from. And we, can do a lot better as far as prioritizing our sexual potential and our sexual health. And even those terms can be laden with assumptions and moral overlay and, subjectivity depending on where you come from. So that's kind of the overall goal here. We have lots of resources for you. We have a library of webinars we've been building, anything from parenting techniques to managing libido differences, managing sexual preference differences, even tips on things like erectile dysfunction and whether or not you're interested in trying anal sex, things like that. Lots of webinars available. And if you have a request of something that you'd like for me to present on, please let me know. You can do that right here on this thread. You can private message me. If you become a subscriber at Patreon, one of the nice benefits of that at any of the levels is that you can participate in the community forum. You can have a direct email access to me that I check almost daily, so I can make sure and address your concerns or your requests, pretty much right away. And I'd love to hear from you and see what you're finding useful and what you'd like to see more or less of. So that's what we're doing here at Sex Talk. And I hope, again, that if you're interested in this webinar, you can also always go to natashaparker.org, which is my personal website to see anything that I'm involved with. And you can go to the sextalkwithnatasha.com page, which will give you everything in an organized way. Patreon is more like a Facebook page that's kind of like ongoing. You kind of get lost a little bit. What's nice about the website is that it organizes all the things that I've listed over the last year and a half as we've developed this resource for you. All right, so to health, pleasure, great sex. Until next time, we'll see you later. Take care, everybody.